Lewis Carroll, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Chapter 12. Alice's Evidence. "Here!" cried Alice. She forgot in the moment how big she had become in the last few minutes. She jumped up very quickly. She hit the jury box with her skirt. She knocked all the jurymen down on the heads of the people below. They lay there in a messy way. It reminded her of a bowl of goldfish she had knocked over last week. "Oh, I beg your pardon," she said in a very worried voice. She started to pick them up as fast as she could. She could not stop thinking about the goldfish. She felt that they must be picked up at once and put back into the jury box, or they would die. "The trial cannot go on," said the king in a very serious voice, "until all the jurymen are back in their right places. All," he said again strongly, and he looked hard at Alice. Alice looked at the jury box. She saw that, in her hurry, she had put the lizard in upside down. The poor little animal moved its tail sadly and could not move. She quickly took it out and put it the right way. "It does not matter much," she said to herself. "I think it is just as useful in the trial this way or the other." When the jury had a little recovered from the shock, and their slates and pencils were found and given back to them, they started to work hard. They began to write a story of the accident. Only the lizard did nothing. It seemed too shocked to do anything. It just sat with its mouth open and looked up at the roof of the court. "What do you know about this case?" the king said to Alice. "Nothing," said Alice. "Nothing at all?" the king asked again. "Nothing at all," said Alice. "That is very important," the king said, and turned to the jury. They started to write this on their slates. Then the White Rabbit stopped them. "Unimportant, your majesty means, of course," he said very politely, but he frowned and made faces at the king. "Unimportant, of course, I meant," the king said quickly. Then he spoke quietly to himself. "Important, unimportant, unimportant, important," as if he was trying which word sounded better. Some of the jury wrote important, and some wrote unimportant. Alice could see this because she was close enough to look at their slates. "But it does not matter at all," she thought. At this moment, the king, who had been writing in his notebook for some time, suddenly cried, "Silence!" and read from his book. "Rule 42. All persons more than a mile high must leave the court." Everyone looked at Alice. "I'm not a mile high," said Alice. "You are," said the king. "Almost 2 miles high," added the queen. "Well, I will not go," said Alice. "And also, that is not a real rule. You just made it now." "It is the oldest rule in the book," said the king. "Then it should be number 1, said Alice. The king became pale and quickly closed his notebook. "Think about your verdict," he said to the jury in a quiet, shaking voice. "There is still more evidence to come, please, your majesty," said the White Rabbit. He jumped up in a great hurry. "This paper has just been found." "What is in it?" said the queen. "I have not opened it yet," said the White Rabbit, "but it looks like a letter written by the prisoner to someone." "It must be that," said the king, "unless it was written to nobody, which is not usual, you know." "Who is it for?" said one of the jurymen. "It is not for anyone," said the White Rabbit. "In fact, there is nothing written on the outside." He opened the paper and added, "It is not a letter after all. It is a set of verses." "Are they in the prisoner's handwriting?" asked another juryman. "No, they are not," said the White Rabbit. "And that is the strangest thing about it." The jury all looked confused. "He must have copied someone else's writing," said the king. The jury all looked happy again. "Please, your majesty," said the knave, "I did not write it, and they cannot prove that I did. There is no name at the end." "If you did not sign it," said the king. "That makes it worse. You must have meant something bad, or you would have signed your name like an honest man." Everyone clapped at this. It was the first really clever thing the king had said that day. "That proves he is guilty," said the queen. "It proves nothing," said Alice. "You do not even know what they are about." "Read them," said the king. The White Rabbit put on his glasses. "Where should I begin, please, your majesty?" he asked. "Begin at the beginning," the king said seriously, "and go on until you come to the end. Then stop." These were the verses the White Rabbit read. "They told me you had been to her, and said my name to him. She said I was a good person, but she said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know that this is true. If she should continue this matter, what would happen to you? I gave her 1, they gave him 2, you gave us 3 or more. They all came back from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should happen to be involved in this matter, he trusts you to set them free, just as we were before. I thought that you had been, before she had this problem, something that came between him and us and it. Do not let him know she liked them best, because this must always be a secret, kept from all the others, between you and me. That is the most important piece of evidence we have heard so far," said the king, rubbing his hands. "So now let the jury—" "If any of them can explain it," said Alice. She had grown so big in the last few minutes that she was not afraid to interrupt him. "I will give him 6 pence. I do not believe there is any meaning in it." The jury all wrote on their slates, "She does not believe there is any meaning in it." But none of them tried to explain the paper. "If there is no meaning in it," said the king, "that saves a lot of trouble, because we do not need to look for any. But still, I am not sure," he went on. He put the verses on his knee and looked at them with one eye. "I think I can see some meaning in them after all. Said I could not swim. You cannot swim, can you?" he added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. "Do I look like I can?" he said, and he really did not, because he was made of cardboard. "All right so far," said the king, and he went on speaking quietly to himself. "We know it to be true. That is, the jury, of course. I gave her 1, they gave him 2. That must be what he did with the tarts, you know." "But it says, they all returned from him to you," said Alice. "Well, there they are," said the king happily, pointing at the tarts on the table. "Nothing is more clear than that. And then, before she had this fit—" "You never had fits, my dear, did you?" he said to the queen. "Never," said the queen angrily. She threw an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke. The poor little Bill had stopped writing on his slate with his finger because it did not make a mark. But now he quickly started again, using the ink that was running down his face as long as it lasted. "Then the words do not fit you," said the king, smiling and looking around the court. Everyone was silent. "It is a joke with words," the king added in an offended voice, and everyone laughed. "Let the jury think about their verdict," the king said, for about the 20th time that day. "No, no," said the queen. "Sentence first, verdict after." "Nonsense," said Alice loudly. "The idea of giving the sentence first." "Be quiet," said the queen, turning purple. "I will not," said Alice. "Off with her head," the queen shouted as loud as she could. Nobody moved. "Who cares about you?" said Alice. She had now grown to her full size. "You are only a pack of cards." At this, the whole pack rose into the air and flew down at her. She gave a small scream, half from fear and half from anger, and tried to push them away. Then she found herself lying on the bank, with her head in her sister's lap. Her sister was gently brushing away some dry leaves that had fallen from the trees onto her face. "Wake up, Alice dear," said her sister. "Why, you have had such a long sleep." "Oh, I had such a strange dream," said Alice. And she told her sister, as well as she could remember, all these strange adventures that you have just read about. When she finished, her sister kissed her and said, "It was a strange dream, dear, yes. But now go in for your tea. It is getting late." So Alice stood up and ran away. While she ran, she thought, as she could, about what a wonderful dream it had been. But her sister stayed where she was. She leaned her head on her hand, watched the sunset, and thought about little Alice and all her wonderful adventures. After some time, she also began to dream in her own way, and this was her dream. First, she dreamed about little Alice. Once again, the small hands were on her knee, and the bright, eager eyes looked up at her. She could hear her voice and see the little movement of her head as she tried to keep her hair out of her eyes. And while she listened, or seemed to listen, everything around her became alive with the strange creatures from her little sister's dream. The long grass moved at her feet as the white rabbit ran past. The scared mouse ran through the nearby water. She could hear the noise of teacups as the March Hare and his friends had their never-ending meal. She could also hear the sharp voice of the Queen sending her poor guests to be executed. Again, the baby pig was sneezing on the Duchess's knee, while plates and dishes broke around it. Again, the cry of the griffin, the scratching of the lizard's pencil, and the quiet choking of the guinea pigs filled the air, together with the faraway crying of the sad mock turtle. So she sat there, with her eyes closed, and almost believed she was in Wonderland, even though she knew that she only had to open her eyes and everything would change to normal life. The grass would only move in the wind, and the water would move with the reeds. The sound of teacups would become the soft ringing of sheep bells, and the Queen's sharp voice would become the voice of a shepherd boy. The baby's sneeze, the cry of the griffin, and all the other strange sounds would change, she knew, into the mixed noise of a busy farmyard, while the sound of cows in the distance would take the place of the mock turtle's deep crying. At last, she imagined how this same little sister would, in the future, become a grown woman. She would keep, all her life, the simple and loving heart of her childhood. She would gather other little children around her and make their eyes bright and eager with many strange stories, maybe even with the dream of Wonderland from long ago. She would feel their simple sadness and enjoy their simple happiness, while remembering her own childhood and the happy summer days.